Welcome back to the double leg. I'm one half of your host, Hayden Iverson, aka Hey Picks, the other half of the host, Nolan at the parlay. How are we doing today?
Good, man. What a weekend of fights.
Yeah, UFC 280 didn't go the way I wanted it to. Had a couple fights that I needed to hit that did not hit in my fashion, and ultimately gave me the L for the night. How did it go for you from a betting perspective?
I started out hot. We got the first, I think, 3 bets in a row. I hit a 3-leg parlay with some heavier favorites, and then it slowly went downhill. Gotchi was my underdog. He lost. I had another underdog in there somewhere that lost. I know I was on Gamrot. He lost. But, Sean O'Malley by decision that we talked about last week, that hit for plus 500. So that did really, really well. I did have Piotr Jan on the money line in a parlay as well. That one obviously did not hit, but the plus 500 on O'Malley by decision was big. And then everybody had Aljamain Sterling. You had him. I had him. He proved why. Even though Dillashaw had the injury, he was going to win that fight regardless, in my opinion. And then Islam. I was on Islam. I didn't see it ending so soon. I didn't see him dominating early in the fight like that. Overall, I'm glad I put money on Islam, but I'm super impressed with how he was able to finish Charles Oliveira.
Yeah, he looked like there's no one that's going to be stopping him. And for me, the two biggest plays or most confident plays that I had were Caio Barrio and Manon Fiorot. Those both hit. I know both of us were on those two fighters. And then the two fighters that let me down, Mateusz Gamrot, that was a tough one. We counted out Beneil Dariush. I mean, guy is a savage. Like, it's just the time off. I think the time off that he had kind of maybe not remember how good he is and how game he is every time he goes out there. I still think Gamrot has a good future ahead of him.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like you said, Beneil, he didn't surprise me because we know he's good, but he looked good everywhere. I mean, the striking, obviously his ground game, super slick. It's almost like a laid back ground game. He's not like overly aggressive, but he's just super slick everywhere. He transitions well. He can get up off of his back well. But I did see him calling out Charles Oliveira to fight in Brazil, which would be crazy.
That would be wild. Yep. And the other fighter that let me down, my boy Charles Oliveira.
Yeah.
High on him. Had a lot invested into him in this fight, and he did not come through for me. Tough one. Took the heat for it. I will take my L and I'll move on.
How about Bilal Muhammad though?
Bilal came in. That one was tough though, because I had the only bet I made on him was him to win by decision.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit juicier than him on the money line, obviously. Wish I just would have took a money line. In hindsight, is always 2020.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a quick stoppage on the feet there. But if you're Sean Brady and you're getting touched up like that on the feet, why are you not trying to clinch? Why are you not trying to shoot for a takedown? Something.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense to me.
And I think with Sean Brady, I think he still does have a bright future in the UFC. I think it was an experience thing. He went up against Bilal, who has fought nothing but killers. He's been around for a lot longer than Sean Brady has. And I think Sean Brady, you're under the bright lights at UFC 280. Your first real, big fight against a top-level guy like Bilal. And I just don't know if he had the right game plan and didn't even try to execute it once he got in the ring or once he got in the octagon. But Sean Brady just looked like he was lacking a little bit of that big-time experience that Bilal has had. And Bilal clearly had a good game plan to keep this thing standing, put it on him with the punches. I didn't see Bilal getting the KO. I know you didn't either. Pretty impressive, though. You can't really call Bilal, boring anymore like everybody does. That was a pretty vicious TKO. I mean, he was hitting him, a bunch of unanswered shots. I thought they should have let Brady go out on a shield, being, a big card like UFC 280. Let the man go out. Let him take a few more big ones. But at the end of the day, I think Bilal was going to finish that sooner or later. So hats off to Bilal, though. He looked very good.
Oh, it's no longer remember the decision. It's remember the KO.
Yep.
And Coach Khabib went 3-0.
Yeah.
At UFC 280. Might as well get him in your corner if you're looking for a corner man. And Hasbulla 1-0 as well.
Yeah.
Hasbulla. All right, let's get into this UFC Vegas 63. We got 11 fights here. Not the most stacked fight night card, but a great main event. Great main event that I'm looking forward to. A lot of implications for the featherweight division as well. We do know that the current champion is going to be looking to fight the champion of the lightweight division, Volkanovski and Islam Makhachev, possible for next year in Australia. So this fight may be a possible, has some title implications. Calvin Kattar's been around for a while. Arnold Allen is I don't want to say an up and comer because he's a ranked, but a younger fighter who's got a lot on his resume that he can look to. Coming off the win to Dan Hooker in London, KO. Dan Hooker hasn't looked very good as of recent, but nonetheless, impressive win there. Calvin Kattar, kind of the ups and downs here. The bad loss to Max Holloway, then the comeback win. Not in the fight, but just come back from that bad loss to Max Holloway. Win over Giga Chikadze, impressive win there, and then the controversial split decision to Josh Emmett at UFC Austin. I'm interested to hear what your play is on this one, because for me, I'm kind of torn.
Yeah, no, I like both guys. I think they're both guys who can compete with anybody in this division on any given night. Like Calvin Kattar, after that loss to Max Holloway, it was one of those that I thought, man, is he ever going to be the same after that? I mean, I forget how many punches Max landed on him that night, but it was upwards of 700. And then he goes in there and beats Chikadze, which I don't think anybody saw coming, because Chikadze had looked lights out on the feet before that, and he put it on Chikadze. Then he loses to Josh Emmett, like you said, controversial. Watching that fight, I thought Calvin Kattar won. After watching it back, it was pretty damn close. Could have gone either way. But at the end of the day, Calvin Kattar has stayed fighting the best guys in the division. Max Holloway, Chikadze, Josh Emmett, who you could argue could give him a title shot anytime. And now he's going to fight Arnold Allen. Like you said, coming off a fight over he won over Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker, obviously not the same Dan Hooker that we've seen earlier on in his career, but he also beat Sadiq Youssef. So the level of competition isn't quite to Calvin Kattar's, but it's still up there. He's still fighting quality guys. But Calvin Kattar, he's going to have his hands full in this fight. This is one I don't see anybody getting a knockout, a finish. I think this is going to be a battle all 5 rounds. Might see a war here, but I do like Calvin Kattar. He's on this little pattern. Lose to Max Holloway, beat Chikadze, lose to Emmett. I just don't see a guy like Calvin Kattar getting 2 losses. And I'm going to stick with him in this fight. I think he gets it done by decision.
Yeah, I was leaning that way as well. I wanted to hear what you said. But for me, from a betting perspective, I think the best play here is to take Calvin Kattar by decision. I got it at plus 225. Yep. I think just with his experience, as you said, 5-round experience. Arnold Allen doesn't have any 5-round experience. So who knows what he's going to look like in rounds 4 and 5 if it does get there. He does come out pretty hot, as we saw in the Dan Hooker fight. He came out swinging, and he got cracked a couple times in those exchanges, but got the finish nonetheless. For Calvin Kattar, he's going to walk you down. He's going to have a heavy volume. I think that's going to wear out Arnold Allen. I think he's going to be able to get this decision win.
Yeah, and like you said, Arnold Allen, he's shown that he can be hit, and Calvin Kattar is such a slick boxer. Look what he did to Chikadze, a guy who has some of the best striking in the division. So I think if Calvin Kattar can just go out there and fight his fight, use his jab, fight off of that jab, I think he'll be able to touch Arnold Allen. And over the duration of the fight, I think Kattar should get stronger. We might see him put it on him a few times. But overall, I just really like the boxing of Calvin Kattar in this fight. And that's really what I'm leaning on for him to beat Arnold Allen.
Yeah, I don't mind a possible late round finish for Calvin Kattar either right now. I'm looking at it right now. Calvin Kattar in round 5 is plus 4,000. Round 4 is plus 2,800. That's pretty juicy. Just considering the amount of volume he can put out. We've seen him in these spots before. You know, the fight against Giga Chikadze, that fight definitely could have been stopped,
Yeah.
possibly in rounds 4 or 5. So that's pretty juicy. I might have to dabble in that a little bit.
Here's something interesting. Calvin Kattar hasn't had a submission win since I think 2009. But if you look at these odds for him to finish the fight, let's say he gets a flash knockdown and jumps on the net for whatever reason, we probably won't see that. But just look at these odds: plus 13,000 for Calvin Kattar to finish this thing by submission in the 5th round. To me, that's worth putting $10 on right there.
God, yeah, that is crazy. Wow, even TKO is 4,500.
Which is that's crazy. A guy that fights well the whole duration of fights. Usually, he's always looking to knock you out. He's always looking to box. In the later rounds, if he could find a finish, somebody's going to get paid.
I agree. I think if Arnold Allen wins this fight, it's got to be within the distance.
Absolutely.
All right, we will move on to the next fight. It drops off fairly quickly here.
Yeah.
Co-main event: Tim Means and Max Griffin. Tim Means coming off the loss to Kevin Holland at UFC Austin by the Darce choke, and Max Griffin the loss to Neil Magny at UFC Columbus in the split decision. He did look pretty decent there. Both guys are somewhat past their prime. Tim Means 38 years old and Max Griffin 36 years old. To me, Means sitting at the dog here, I don't think I could ever get behind Max Griffin as a favorite. For Tim Means to be a dog here, he's a veteran. He's been around him. He's got 46 fights, 46 pro fights. To me, it's dog or pass in this situation. Max Griffin hasn't really shown anything that impressive. Win over Carlos Condit, decent. Kenan Song, Ramiz Brahimaj, nothing too impressive there. Tim Means has been around for a while. I'm leaning on the dog in this one. What about you?
Yeah, no, and fighters like Max Griffin, like you said, he's not quite in his prime anymore. And Tim Means hasn't looked terrible lately. I mean, he lost by submission to Kevin Holland, but before that was on a 3-fight win streak. And I love these situations. Max Griffin's a minus 180 favorite. In MMA, when fighters are hovering around that minus 160, minus 180, it means he should win, but Vegas is they're not super confident that he's going to. And in MMA, underdogs that are plus 150, plus 160 aren't that big of underdogs at the end of the day because anything can happen in these fights. These guys are all good enough to knock the other one out at any time. I would lean the underdog in this fight as well. Tim Means, a ton of experience. I think out of his how many wins did you say Tim Means has? 32 or
32.
32 wins, 19 knockouts. So the guy can bang. The guy can still box. Max Griffin, I don't think he's not chinny per se, but he will get hit a little bit. And I think if this fight goes past round 1 and round 2, Tim Means is a durable fighter. So for that reason, I think there's more value in betting on the underdog here than there is going with a guy like Max Griffin. So I'm with you, man. I like Tim Means on the money line plus 155 in this fight.
Yeah, I mean his boxing is, I think, more crisp than Max Griffin's. I think Max Griffin did look pretty good in his last fight, but still lost to Neil Magny, who is solid. But yeah, it's just dog or pass in this one. I can never get behind Max Griffin as a favorite.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at Max Griffin's opponents before Neil Magny, Carlos Condit, who's older, Kenan Song, Raheem, but he's not fighting any world-class killers by any means. He's not fighting these guys that are at the top of the division. So, I mean, Tim Means, I think he'll have his hands full with Tim Means. I don't think he's going to go out there and starch him by any means. But if Tim Means can weather that first 1.5 rounds, I think Tim Means is going to have a good chance to run away with this fight. Like I said, I like the durability. Overall, I like Tim Means as an underdog here.
Yeah, 46 pro fights, only been knocked out twice. So that's some world-class durability right there.
He's a tough guy.
It is. We'll move on to the heavyweight division. This one gets greasy. Where that at? Waldo Cortez Acosta and Jared Vandera This one is as greasy as it gets, man. Like Waldo Cortez Acosta coming off the Dana White Contender Series. These are middling heavyweights. Never want to get too invested in that. Jared Vanderaa, 4 straight losses. Not a good look for him. He really has just proven time and time again that he should not be in the UFC. And yeah, this one is I don't like this one. It could be violence, but Jared Vanderaa hasn't. I mean, he hasn't had a win in a while, but he hasn't had a finish for himself in a while either.
Yeah.
Aldo Cortez Acosta, 7-0 undefeated, but hasn't really impressed me too much. I'm gonna lean the favorite here in Waldo Cortez Acosta, just for the fact that I have absolutely no confidence in Jared Vanderaa at all. What about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. No, if you're a betting guy and you don't like Cortez Acosta, it's like there's no play for you in this fight, because if you look at Jared Vanderaa, his last win was against Justin Taffa, but then he lost to Alexander Romanov. Okay, that's fine. That's a decent loss. I mean, that's a good fighter. And then Andrei Arlovsky, who's older, lost to him. Okay, and then you kind of see what the UFC did here. Okay, we'll give him the old 41, 42-year-old Alexei Oleinik. He gets submitted. Okay, we'll give you Chase Sherman, who's on his second or third stint in the UFC, who hasn't had a win in forever, and he gets knocked out. It's like they're giving him every chance to stay in the UFC, but if he loses to Cortez Acosta, this is probably going to be it for Jared Vanderaa. You can't go on a 5-fight skid in the heavyweight division and expect to stick around and fight much longer in the UFC, unless you're Sam Alvey. Sam Alvey had a monstrous, I forget how many fight losing streak, but everybody loves Sam Alvey. So, yeah, there's no confidence in Jared Vanderaa here for me. I can't get behind him one bit, and I don't think we've seen enough out of Cortez Acosta either to be confident in picking that side. But if I did have to pick a guy, it's going to be Acosta. There's no way I'm putting money on Jared Vanderaa. Never have, for a good reason, and I promise myself I never will.
Yeah, as much as it burdens me to say, I did put a bet in for Cortez Acosta by KO at plus 150.
And that's got to be the play if you're playing anything. I mean, he's on his last 3 wins are by knockout, so he's going in there against a guy in Jared Vanderaa who can be knocked out and is basically going to leave his chin open. Jared Vanderaa is kind of I don't care if I get hit, I'm just going to swing until see if I can hit you. Always gets clipped. So, yeah, if you are playing this, it's definitely Acosta by KO. That's definitely the play here.
Yeah, he does swing very heavy. He keeps his hands down as well, so that worries me a little bit. But I think if he gets into a brawl with Vanderaa, I think he comes out on top.
Yeah. Yep.
We'll move on to the next fight on the card: Tresean Gore and Josh Fremd. This one is not super interesting as well, but we'll see how Tresean Gore fares in this one. He had a decent amount of hype coming off the Ultimate Fighter. Was supposed to fight for the Ultimate Fighter, but I think he had an injury and couldn't fight for the Ultimate Fighter title. He was 3-0 before that, and then lost his first 2 fights in the UFC to the Ultimate Fighter champion Brian Battle, and just got KO'd by Cody Brundage, who is mainly a wrestler. For Josh Fremd, he made his debut against Anthony Hernandez, who you can't be too mad about that. Anthony Hernandez he looks really good. Really just pushed the pace on him and tired him out. But Josh Fremd showed a lot of heart in that one. He could have definitely given up and just succumbed to the pressure that Hernandez was giving him. But before that, his other loss was to Gregory Rodriguez. Can't be mad about that one either. Although, if you go back and watch that fight, he got torched in that one. So, yeah. But for me, I'm thinking Josh Fremd is not a bad spot here. I think he's solid on the feet. I think he's durable enough all around. I mean, I'm not going to get too caught up in a knockout by Gregory Rodriguez. Like, that guy is as powerful as they come. and a loss to Anthony Hernandez is really good experience for him as well. I think if he can get this fight to the ground, he has a great advantage there. But if he just stands and kicks with Trayshawn Gore, it could get a little dicey. For Gore doesn't really have a ton of volume either. Josh Fremd is 6'4". Trayshawn Gore is 6 foot. He's going to have a bit of height on him. So I think Josh Fremd is a decent spot here. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I like Josh Fremd just because Trayshawn Gore on The Ultimate Fighter was supposed to be this guy that was going to come off the show, come right into the UFC. Even though he didn't win the show, they still gave him fights. I think they were really, really high on Trayshawn Gore. And then you found out against Brian Battle that maybe he's not quite ready. So they give him Cody Brundage. I'm pretty sure he's a pretty sizable favorite in that fight. And then he takes the knockout loss. So for me, it's like, I don't know if Trayshawn Gore is quite there yet to where he's at the UFC level. I mean, the guy is only, 3-1, 3-2. So he hasn't had a ton of professional mixed martial arts fights yet. And he's going up against a guy in Josh Fremd. And I love that 6'4" frame for Josh Fremd against Trayshawn Gore. Like you said, if he can get this thing to the ground, he'll have an advantage. Got to be a little bit cautious about the kicks of Trayshawn Gore. At the end of the day, Gore is a really strong and powerful guy. But I like Fremd here. He's not a huge favorite, -175. But the thing that I'm really looking at on the betting slate right here is the under 2.5, -120. I don't see this fight going past 2 rounds, if I'm being honest. We've seen Trayshawn Gore get knocked out. Josh Fremd has good ability to finish fights. I think Trayshawn Gore is going to come into this fight with something to prove. He's going to be swinging hard. He's going to be looking for that knockout. And Josh Fremd, you've got to beat Trayshawn Gore here. You've seen him lose 2 fights in a row. You should have the blueprint on how to beat him. I think we see a finish inside 2.5 rounds here.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I actually have already put that in, and I agree with you 100% there. If we look at Trayshawn Gore's his opponents before he got into the Ultimate Fighter house, 0-0, 1-0, and 0-0. So
yes,
nothing too special there. And then the losses in the UFC. So the writing's on the wall there.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm on Fremd as well on my pick. I don't know if I'll maybe a parlay piece or something, but I don't have anything on him right now. I just have that under 2.5.
Yeah, when I'm looking at it, that's my most confident pick in this fight would be taking the under 2.5. Because even a guy like Trayshawn Gore hasn't looked great, but we know how powerful he is, that there's always a chance he catches the chin and puts his opponent out. I don't necessarily see it happening, but if it happens and I take the under 2.5, I'll be extremely happy with it. So under 2.5 is where I'm at for this fight, and that's definitely what I will be playing on Saturday.
Can't agree more. Move on to the fight in the light heavyweight division. I think this is a under the radar fight.
Absolutely.
Me. I think it's probably the second best fight on this card. Dustin Jacoby and Khalil Roundtree. Jacoby on a bit of a run here. We got 4-fight win streak. Darren Stewart, John Allen, Michael Olashechek, and Dawoon Jung. And for Khalil Roundtree, 2-fight win streak. Modestas Bukauskas and Carl Roberson. He looks like he's really turned his career around. Khalil Roundtree coming in as a dog. That's kind of tempting to me. I'm interested to hear what you got to say about this one.
Well, I'm going to be extremely biased in this fight because Dustin Jacoby, I could jump in my car right now and be at where he grew up in 5 minutes. Me and him grew up literally 5 miles away from each other. I grew up watching Dustin Jacoby play quarterback in high school, basketball, all of that stuff. So there's always big parties at my house and all around my town when Dustin Jacoby, the hometown kid, is fighting. So I'm going to be pulling for Dustin Jacoby. And like I said, I'm going to be biased here. But if I put all that aside, Dustin Jacoby is a really, really good kickboxer. He fought in Glory Kickboxing, had a really good career there. He actually had his first stint in the UFC almost 10 years ago, had a couple losses, and Dana White brought him back for the Contender Series, and he's looked phenomenal since. I mean, he started with Justin Ledet, Maxim Grishin, had the draw against Jan Kudatalaba, beat Darren Stewart, beat John Allen, beat Michael Olajacek, and then beat Da-Un Jung, who is a pretty good fighter himself. And Dustin Jacoby knocked him out stiff at UFC Long Island. But Khalil Roundtree is so powerful. I mean, you can see it in his previous fights. The guy has very, very heavy hands. I think this is going to be on the feet the whole entire time. Dustin Jacoby has good takedown defense. And like I said, on the feet, though, Dustin Jacoby is just slick. His kickboxing, good. It translates really, really well into MMA, using those kicks. At distance, he's a really good fighter. But the one thing I am worried about is that power out of Khalil Roundtree. But I got to stick with the hometown kid, Dustin Jacoby here. I got to take him. Like I said, I'm a little bit biased, though, but I do like him on the money line. And I do plan on putting him somewhere in a parlay on Saturday.
Yeah. Talking about kickboxing, has a loss to the title challenger, Alex Pereira. That's impressive. I have been backing Dustin Jacoby for the past 4 fights, so I got a lot invested in him as well, and it would pain me to pick against him.
Yeah.
But in this spot, from a betting perspective, I think it's got to be dog or pass, just based off of what Khalil Roundtree has shown in his past fights. I think he's a different fighter now. The dude's back is like as wide as a truck. He's got power for days. I'm really excited for this fight, actually, because both fighters are on a little bit of a streak. Khalil Roundtree was on Joe Rogan, so that's got to help for something. I don't know, man. Like, I'm leaning the dog here. I'm probably going to take Khalil Roundtree for my pick. I may get there from a betting perspective, but I just hate betting against fighters that have proven me right in the past.
Yeah. I think, back to the over-unders, I'm not a big fan of them, but in this fight, both guys are pretty tough. And if you watch Jacoby's fights, he has that knockout he's coming off of, but he fights really well at distance. He'll almost jab you, kick leg kicks, and kind of point fight you for a while, and then he'll put it on you later on in the fights. Khalil Roundtree, he has the ability to knock people out whenever, but he's going to be a little bit not size disadvantage because he's definitely going to be the stronger fighter. But Jacoby is long. He's 6'4". He's got a 78-inch reach. I think he'll be able to keep that distance for most of the beginning of the fight. So if the over-under is only at 1.5 rounds, I do like the over right here. It's -155 right now. I think that number drops as we get closer to the fight because people are going to see the power. They're going to see that, these guys both like to stand up. There's some big, powerful guys. I think that gets a little bit closer to even money. So I'm going to wait till we're a little bit closer to the fight. But I do like that over 1.5 rounds. I think both guys have a little bit of a feeling out process. And then I look for Jacoby to gauge the distance. Leg kicks, teep kicks, work off of his jab. And if he does find a finish, I think it'd be later in the fight. But I think it gets to 1.5. That'd be my play on this fight.
Yeah, I think that's a solid play as well. Dustin Jacoby, very smart fighter. That fight he had against Michael Oleksiejczuk, I do believe he was injured in that fight, and he's usually a pretty heavy leg kicker. I think he threw like 1 leg kick that entire fight. Still won the fight. Yeah. So I do see him kind of trying to keep that range. He's a little bit taller than Khalil Roundtree. I do see him trying to keep that range and stay out of harm's way. I think that's a solid way to look at it in this one. Khalil Roundtree, 10 wins, 9 of them come by knockout.
Yeah.
So I think if he does win this fight, it's going to be by finish.
Yep. And he does. I mean, if it's tough because Khalil Roundtree has a lot of knockouts, and if you see, he's also been knocked out. Jan Kudatalaba, Johnny Walker. So he has the ability to either be knocked out or get the knockout. So it scares me taking that over 1.5 just a little bit. But at the end of the day, I just trust in Jacoby's distance and ability to kind of, like you said, stay out of harm's way and kind of point fight until the end and then put it on him to get to that over 1.5. But like you said, super interesting fight, probably the second best fight on this card. I'm excited for. I'm sure a lot more people are as well. Should be fun either way.
Agreed. And I think this one is the third best fight on the card. Roman Dolidze
Yeah.
and Phil Hawes, two guys who are full of power, full of strength. Both guys are super strong. Couple wins for Roman Dolidze. The big win over Kyle Dawkins in his last one, that knee to the head in the clinch. That was, you could hear it. It was pretty nasty. And then Phil Hawes with the win over Duran Win, who is probably 4 feet tall. No shade to him, but
Yeah.
Phil Hawes just kind of had his way with him on that one. This one, I'll let you go first. See what you're thinking on this one.
With Delodzi, he's nasty. That's the best word to describe him. He's nasty. In the clinch, he can fight. He's a good striker. He's strong. He's tough. But you go and look, he has a loss over Trevin Giles, who I haven't been super impressed with. He just came off a win over Luis Cosi. But other than that, he's taken some losses where he just didn't look great. So it's going to depend on which version of Delodzi we get here. But Phil Hawes has a ton of power, has looked pretty good. He's a minus 170 favorite, but I don't trust the money line. For me on this fight, I think we're going to see somebody get knocked out here. I'm going to lean that it's going to be Phil Hawes doing the damage at one point or another. So that's going to be my play here. Phil Hawes by KO in this fight. Other than that, I just don't. I don't know. I don't find a ton of value at Phil Hawes minus 170. So this is going to be kind of one of those get lucky type plays. I'm going to take him by knockout at plus money and hope for the best. But it'll be a sprinkle. It'll be like 0.25 units. Just something fun because at the end of the day, either of these guys could walk away with the win. But I do think it's by knockout, whoever does win.
Yeah, I agree with you. I could also see, both guys have great power, but I could also see this kind of being a slugfest that somehow makes it to the distance.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
for Phil Hawes, starches Jacob Malkoun nearly 2 years ago. The win over Nasruddin Imavov, very impressive. Nasruddin looks really good. Kyle Dawkins, win over to Kyle Dawkins. Dawkins looks pretty solid. Then the loss to Chris Curtis, which was a bit of a disappointment for him. He was a pretty big favorite in that one. And then the win over Duran Win. It's like he has some good wins. It's not a bad loss in hindsight because Chris Curtis has shown that he's definitely top of the division.
Yeah.
But the win over Duran Win doesn't really get my gears going. For Roman Dolidze, as you said, the loss to Trevin Giles it looks pretty bad right now. But it was a year and 7 months ago. I would maybe give him a pass. It was his first loss, so maybe it's a big learning curve for him there. But in my opinion, I got to go dog or pass in this one. In a lot of these situations on this card, I feel like it's dog or pass, just because I just don't know what I'm gonna get. It's like,
Yeah, exactly.
who the hell knows? But I also find it hard to bet against the Georgian. Like, the Georgian guys are just, like, as you said, just grimy, like just dog kind of personalities to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna go with Dolidze here, taking the underdog. I don't see a ton of value on Phil Hawes at minus 170 either. I do have a play on Roman Dolidze, just a little small play on him as a dog straight up. I would maybe look for, what's the over under right now? Under 2.5, over under 2.5, over minus 120, under minus 110. That doesn't look too bad to take the under there. But
Yeah, definitely with how scrappy both of these guys are, how hard they hit. Another one of those fights, that'd be 3 in a row for me if I pick the under 2.5. But it's one of those cards though. I mean, it's one of those cards
it
where
is.
it's like there's not a lot of confidence picking the favorite here, but the underdog hasn't really shown us a whole lot yet at this level. So just banking on guys to take it the distance, or banking on these powerful guys to get the finish. So the under here doesn't look too bad to me either at 2.5 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I was saying last week. You get a card with a lot of high level fights. You don't really get a ton of finishes because both guys are so good defensively.
Yeah.
And you get a card like this. This one isn't as low level of a fight, but a card like this where they're, a lot of entry level people coming off day one contender series, that kind of stuff, first
Mm-hmm.
fights, you get a lot of finishes because people are just kind of still finding their way earlier in their career, or towards the end of their career. They just gotta throw it all out there. So
Yeah,
I think we could get a lot of finishes on this card.
I do too. I do too. You look at it, a lot of these fighters do have finishes on the resume. A lot of them, like you said, are kind of new, up and coming, and sometimes you just run into that next level that you weren't quite prepared for and find yourself getting knocked out. Or it's a type of card where some of these younger guys kind of prove that they are ready with a big finish. So I think it's one of those sleeper cards where we could see a lot of knockouts, kind of like UFC San Diego was.
Yeah, I see a lot of violence in the future.
Definitely.
Move on to the heavyweights. The old man, 43 years old, Andrei Arlovski, on the 4-fight win streak that I don't think he earned very much. Marcus Rogerio de Lima coming in as the favorite, 37 years old for him as well. So we got some older heavyweights here. Coming off the loss to Blagoy Ivanov, pretty close decision win or decision loss in that one. Then a couple or knockout to Ben Rothwell. But for Arlovski, a couple split decisions here to Jared Vandera, who we already talked about earlier, and then a split decision win to Jake Collier, who definitely won that fight. If any name was on that scorecard other than Andrei Arlovski, I think he loses those fights. But either way, both guys train out of American Top Team, so we're getting a little bit of a clash of the gyms here. I think Marcus Rogerio de Lima puts the end to Andrei Arlovski's win streak here. I think he's just a little bit more powerful. I think he gets the job done in the first round. I don't know if you think that way at all, but I think he comes out very strong in all of his fights in the first round, just swinging bombs. And in a small cage like this, I think he gets it done. Arlovski's been finished by KO 11 times in his career.
Yeah.
Yes, he has 54 pro fights, but 11 KOs on his record. At this age, are you really going to stand in there and try to take a ton of damage? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So I'm on Marcos Rogerio de Lima by KO, probably round 1, if not round 2.
I like it. And it's so weird if you look at Arlovski's record because he's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-1 in his last 7 fights, and his only loss comes to Tom Aspinall. But like you said, there's some fights in there he probably shouldn't have won. And, Jared Vandera, who's not the best fighter in the UFC. Chase Sherman's one of those wins, not the best fighter in the UFC. And then he's got Tanner Boser and Jake Collier. The Collier fight, I'm with you. I do not think that Andrei Arlovski won that fight. But De Lima, on the other hand, is going to be a lot more powerful on the feet. I think Arlovski, as he's gotten later on in his career, kind of has that stall. He kind of stalls guys at times. He's not going to come out with that huge, quick power like he's a young guy again. He is 43 at the end of the day. And we've seen this story time and time again. As you get older in the UFC, unless you're a Glover Teixeira or a guy like that, which I don't think Andrei Arlovski is at all, your time's going to come. And at 43 years old, it's got to be any time for Andrei Arlovski. And in fighting a strong guy like De Lima, I'm not going to be surprised if we see a finish here by De Lima. I'm kind of with you. Knockout, if it does happen, I could see it happening early as well. So that's the play here. I just don't – there's no value on Andrei Arlovski, to my opinion. Plus 190, I just don't think he has a shot to beat De Lima at all. But, stranger things have happened. But De Lima by knockout is definitely a good play, in my opinion. And I will be putting that on my card this weekend.
Yeah, Marcus Rogerio de Lima by KO is at plus 175. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
I don't like my chances if this one goes to the scorecards. So I would probably just stick to the KO prop.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could take my heart racing if this one goes to the cards. So
Arlovski's stolen so many. I mean, if it goes to decision, you can see it in his last 4 fights. And it's always Andrei Arlovski. So I'm with you on that. Wild. I think De Lima, though, I think he'll want to come into this fight and finish this thing. I think he knows he has the ability. He's fighting a guy who's 43 years old. He knows he can do it. It's just going to be a matter of when. Is it going to be early? Is it going to be in the second round? But I do think he gets it done for sure.
Agreed. We'll move on to the next fight. In the middleweight division, Joseph Holmes, the ugly man. In the Iron Turtle, Jun Park. What a nickname there. Is he the biggest favorite on the card? Minus 240? I think he is.
Which is odd. That's
very odd.
Normally we get some super big favorites in these UFC fights, so it's kind of nice to have one. We're going to have some chance to make some money.
Yeah, I think he's the biggest favorite on the card for a reason. I don't believe in Joseph Holmes at all.
Agree.
The win over Alan Amedovski is not impressive at all. Anyone could finish Alan Amedovski at this point, unless your name's Christoph Jocko and you can't finish a sandwich. A loss over Jamie Pickett looks really bad as well. In hindsight, Jamie Pickett hasn't looked very good. Jun Park only loss in his last 5 is to Gregory Rodriguez. Already talked about him earlier. Not going to bash him for that one. And then a split decision win over Eric Anders in his last one out. That one was definitely a split decision. It was close. I think it could have gone either way. I had some dog money on Anders. I was a little upset about it.
Yeah.
But either way, I'm not going to get too upset. I'm big on Jun Park this week. I think he's the biggest favorite for a reason. I'm big on him. I think minus 240 is honestly decent value. Like 4 out of his last 5 wins. I'll take him at minus 240. Honestly, I think he's a great parlay piece, parlay anchor this week. Let me know what you're thinking on this one.
Yeah, that loss to Jamie Pickett. I mean, Jamie Pickett hasn't looked good in the UFC lately, but he's only 8-2. He's not. I don't think he has the style to go in there and beat a guy like Park. Like you said, we saw in the Eric Anders fight. I do think that he. I don't know. That's a toss-up. Maybe he won that fight, maybe he didn't, but he showed he could grapple a little bit. He's a strong guy. And I think if Joseph Holmes wants to win this fight, he's got to get it to the ground and find a submission. I don't see him being able to get this thing to the ground. And Park's solid on the feet. He's tough. He can take a shot. He can also box you up a little bit. He's going to be more experienced. I think he's going to be a slightly heavier-handed fighter. I don't know. I'm not sold on Joseph Holmes in the least bit, especially with that loss to Jamie Pickett. And then he won against Amedovski, like you said, man. He's been finished by a lot of people in the UFC. He's not, some monster. It's not like he's coming off of a win over some killer. I do like Park in this fight a lot. Again, my only play on him here would be to put him in a parlay at minus 240. I don't see him finishing the fight necessarily, but I'm not confident enough to let it go to the judges' scorecards here. So yeah, parlay piece, minus 240. That's doable if you put it, a 2-3 leg parlay. But yeah, not much else to say about this fight. I just don't trust Joseph Holmes, and Park's durable enough that anywhere this fight goes, I think he'll end up on top, and he will get his hand raised at the end of the night.
Yeah, the only thing that would concern me is Joseph Holmes is going to have a bit of a height and reach advantage. 6'4" for Joseph Holmes, 5'10" for the Iron Turtle.
Right.
80-inch reach for Joseph Holmes, 73-inch reach for the Iron Turtle, so 7 inches there. Who knows how that could play out, but from what I've seen with Joseph Holmes on the feet, it's very low volume. He's pretty flat-footed in there as well. That's not really a place that he shines, so I don't think that's going to be a big advantage for him there. Iron Turtle, pretty decent at closing range as well. So, yeah, give me the Iron Turtle. Who knows, though? Joseph Holmes could just pull some shit out of everything and fuck up my day. But
it always seems to happen at the beginning of the card, too. It's a guy that you don't expect to win, and then he comes out there and he looks like a world beater for the first time in his career.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I see Park going out there, kind of grinding out a decision victory. I don't know. Like you said, we'll see what happens on Saturday. Would be a parlay piece. I don't trust him enough to put a bunch of money on him to win in any facet in this fight, but definitely would put him in a parlay at minus 240.
Yeah, him by decision is minus 106. I honestly, that's obviously the most obvious of scenarios, but him by KO at plus 600, I don't hate it. I think he could maybe come out here looking for a finish, just considering his last 4 wins have all come by decision. Who knows? With him being this big of a favorite, the finish is not off the table at all.
Yeah, yeah.
Move on to Chase Hooper and Steve Garcia. Chase Hooper making a running at the biggest favorite on the card there. Coming off the win to Felipe Colares via TKO ground and pound. Just 4 months ago, he looked really good in that one. Steve Garcia coming off the loss to Mahashate at UFC 275, I believe. And he got absolutely flatlined. Not a good look for him there. But what are you thinking on this one?
I love watching Chase Hooper fight. And I know, he came off the Contender Series and he had a lot of hype behind him. He's super young. At the time, I believe he was the youngest active fighter in the UFC. But he's so fun to watch on the ground. If you're a fan of jiu-jitsu, he's so long. I mean, he's lengthy. And we saw in his last fight, he'd get put on his back, but he'd use his length, his reach to almost, transition into these crazy positions. He's so flexible. Makes it a lot of fun to watch. And then he gets the TKO victory kind of out of nowhere. Didn't see that coming because if you look at the kid, he's skinny. He doesn't look powerful. But each time he goes out there, his striking does get a little bit better. But it's definitely not his game, man. The jiu-jitsu is slick. It's really good. Minus 220, though, scares me a little bit for a guy like Hooper, who's kind of been up and down, win, loss, win, loss. Lost to Steven Peterson and then lost to Alex Caceres. So I don't know, man. I don't look for him to finish Steve Garcia by TKO in this one. I think if you're looking at anything, stick with what he knows. That jiu-jitsu, like I said, it's solid. So maybe Chase Hooper by submission here. But again, it's one I'm just not super confident in. I am going to look forward to watching this fight. But as far as betting goes right now, Chase Hooper is not the most confident minus 220 favorite that I've seen in the UFC so far. So Steve Garcia, kind of the same way, up and down. Like you talked about his recent loss, but he beat Charlie Ontiveros, who's just not very good at all. Yeah. So it's hard to gauge, what type of fighter Steve Garcia is because the one before that, he lost to Luis Pena, Violent Bob Ross, who's no longer in the UFC before. So you don't really know what you're going to get here with Steve Garcia, which I think is a big reason why he's plus 180 and that big of an underdog here. But again, man, Chase Hooper's still young. He's not, going to go out there and just maul and dominate everybody. He's more of a slow, takes his time with his jiu-jitsu, takes his time to get dominant position. But again, just not confident either way in this one.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I just, at this point in Chase Hooper's career, I don't know if I can get down with minus 220.
Yeah.
Especially against an opponent like Steve Garcia. You don't know what you're going to get from him. And this one is going to be at 145. Steve Garcia dropping down in weight. These last all three of his UFC fights have been at 155. So maybe keep an eye on weigh-ins there. He's also 6 feet tall. That's only an inch shorter than Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper's used to having a pretty big height and reach advantage in that one. So not a big advantage against Steve Garcia. So might throw him for a little bit of a loop there. But interesting because who really gets knocked out and then drops down in weight? Like it's kind of weird.
Right.
So his chin could be gone, completely gone at that point. But something to look at there. I'm probably gonna stay away from this one. As we talked about earlier, I think maybe this one gets finished as well. The under 2.5 right now is at minus 155. I don't hate that. Just the fact that Steve Garcia just got knocked out pretty badly, but Chase Hooper has never been finished. So I don't know if I would bet on him to get finished in this one. So I don't know, maybe take Hooper inside the distance just so you can get the KO and the sub just in case. But yeah, I'll take Hooper for the sake of the pick, but I don't know if I'll touch him at minus 220.
Yep, and it's pretty interesting. If you look on Tapology, Hooper is 91% of the people who have voted think that he's going to win, and 67% of those thinks it's going to be by submission. I don't hate it, honestly. I don't necessarily, like I said, I'm not extremely confident Chase Hooper goes out there and gets a finish, but his jiu-jitsu and his ability to get into positions that allow him to look for submissions is really, really good. And he's been able to do it against anybody because of that flexibility and because of that length. So I do think in this fight we will see situations where Chase Hooper has the opportunity to go for submissions. It's just going to be up to him if he gets it done, if he finishes one or not. But by submission, if you do put money on it, you're going to have a few times where you're screaming at the TV for him to find it, because he will be in a dominant position at some point in this fight. So yeah, I don't hate the submission play on this either.
All right. We'll move on to the flyweight division. Cody Durden and Carlos Mota. Mota making his debut here, coming off the KO win and LFA just a month ago. So pretty fresh there. Cody Durden coming off the win over JP Buys. This one, I don't know if I have a great read on it, just considering the circumstances with Carlos Mota. If we look at his last fight, was in LFA, round one, KO win. Round one KO win. The North Iowa fights, and that was at featherweight. So he's kind of fluctuated with weights. His only loss is to Charles Johnson. Can't be too mad about that one, because Charles Johnson looked pretty decent against Muhammad Makayev.
Yep.
And survived all 3 rounds in that one. I guess you can't really say he looked that decent, but like Makayev is a killer, but he survived with him and really didn't take that much damage from him. Just kind of got cold. So
yep.
I would probably lean Mota in this one. He is the favorite at -175. I think that's a little rich considering it's his debut, but he looks pretty decent on the feet. What are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, Mota being this heavy of a favorite, or what are the lines here? I just had it in front of me.
Tapology's got him at -175 and Durden +150.
Okay, so Durden, if you look back, he also lost to Muhammad Makayev by guillotine choke, and it was pretty early on in the fight. He got clipped with a big shot, and then Makayev jumped on his neck immediately. He did get the TKO over JP Bays, and then he fought Arichi Lang and won by decision. Arichi Lang's a really good striker, so it shows that Cody Durden has the ability to go in there with strikers and grind out decision wins. But with Mota, we don't really know what we're going to get at this UFC level yet. He's coming out off of the LFA fight. Before that, the Northern Iowa fights. So his level of competition isn't going to be as high. His experience isn't going to be as deep as Cody Durden's. I actually like Cody Durden in this fight just because of the fact that he's fought, guys like Muhammad Makayev, Arichi Lang. He has the ability to hang on the ground, and he's definitely got the ability to hang on the feet. He's a tough kid. So yeah, as an underdog here, I don't mind Cody Durden at all. Hardly ever do I trust guys making their UFC debuts with a record like 7-0 or 8-1 and coming off of promotions like LFA is a good one, but the Northern Iowa fights, it's just they don't have that level of experience and level of competition to make me super confident to fight and win right away in the UFC.
I can't disagree with you on that one. This one's probably not one I'm going to get invested in at all.
Right, yeah.
Just for those facts that you just stated. I don't think Durden at +150 is bad at all. I think that's pretty solid value. He's been in there with some solid, I think pretty highly of Arichi Lang, as you said. On the feet, he's really solid on the feet. But if you can take him down, like Durden has really good wrestling, he does struggle with that. I just don't know who I'm going to take in this one. I'll probably, for the sake of the pick, I'll take Mota.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get invested in it.
Yep. Yeah, it's one of those, if you don't have to, a lot of people out there love to bet every single fight, but if you're picking and choosing, this is probably one that's not on your card.
Yeah.
It's just, there are a lot of unknowns with both fighters to be putting a lot of money on either side.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys that loves to bet
Yeah.
on every fight,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, I this one really scares me. So
Yep.
I
Yep.
love to bet so much on every fight that I put money on Waldo Cortez Acosta. So,
Yeah.
so
Exactly.
all right, the first fight of the night. Really excited to see Christian Rodriguez again, coming out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, my home state, Wisconsin. Coming out of Rufusport. I know a lot of guys out of there that have done very well.
Yep.
And this guy looks like he can do some damage in the division. Only 24 years old. Fighting Josh Weems, who, in my opinion, doesn't look like anything special. um, but he is from Mississippi, so he's kind of got that redneck dog into him a little bit. Coming off the win by a submission guillotine choke 3 months ago over Mo Miller. I went back and watched that fight. He was getting taken down pretty easily, and he didn't really impress much in that fight, but found a way to get it done and got that guillotine choke. Christian Rodriguez lost in his debut to Jonathan Pierce. Nobody's going to bash him for that one.
Right.
If you go back and watch that fight, he had a really, really deep guillotine that I don't know how Jonathan Pierce survived that one. Rodriguez showed a ton of really nice jiu-jitsu moves in that fight. With the pressure that Jonathan Pierce puts on you, the wrestling that he puts on you, Rodriguez kind of handled it with a lot of finesse and got out of some tough positions with his jiu-jitsu and put Jonathan Pierce in a lot of really very tough positions
Yep.
that he somehow survived. I haven't seen any lines on this one because I think it just got put together like today, this morning. So I would assume Christian Rodriguez is going to be a pretty decently sized favorite because he was a favorite over Garrett Armfield, who he was supposed to fight. And I know a lot of people think highly of him as well. So I would expect him to be a favorite in this one. I'm going to take him. I think if he is a big favorite, he's a really good parlay piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And Weems, you can tell just looking at his record, he loves to get the submissions, guillotine, armbar, Kimura, armbar. So he's got decent jiu-jitsu, but Christian Rodriguez does as well. And training out of Rufus Sport, that's a really, really good camp. He's going to be prepared. He's going to be ready. No matter how short notice this fight is, guys like Christian Rodriguez who come out of that camp are always ready to throw down. They're always ready to fight. And I do think he's going to have a better gas tank in this one as well. So I think this fight, being on short notice, that's going to play into his advantage big time. If he can get past that first round and a half, drag this thing into deep waters, I think we could see a Christian Rodriguez finish somewhere in the late second or even third round. But I'm definitely leaning Christian Rodriguez in this fight for sure over Joshua Weems.
Definitely. I think he gets it done inside the distance. No doubt.
I think so.
Weems has been finished before. Christian Rodriguez, even in his fight with Jonathan Pierce, showed really good stuff on the feet as well.
Yeah.
Both guys were Christian Rodriguez took that fight on really short notice, and both guys were kind of not necessarily gassed, but just really drained.
Yeah.
And when they were on the feet, it was kind of like slower, pawing at each other. But Rodriguez cracked him a couple times and forced Pierce to clinch with him. So
yeah, and I mean your UFC debut, you got to fight a guy like Jonathan Pierce. That is no easy task. I mean, Jonathan Pierce has won in the UFC. He's looked good, and he's climbing the ranks right now. He'll be fighting, before the end of the year. So losing to Jonathan Pierce in your UFC debut and actually doing some really good work against him says a lot about Christian Rodriguez and makes me even that more confident that he's going to go out there and beat Joshua Weems on Saturday.
Yeah, that was up a weight class as well. He fought at 145. 135 is his natural weight class. So big things for Christian Rodriguez. I think comes Saturday, he gets it done in pretty easily. Pretty easy. From the top down, I got Calvin Kattar, Tim Means, Waldo Cortez Acosta, Josh Fremd, Khalil Roundtree, Roman Dolidze, Marcus Rosario de Lima, Junyon Park, Chase Hooper, Carlos Moda, and Christian Rodriguez.
I like it. And for me, we're going to have a lot of the same here because Calvin Kattar, I love the guy as a fighter, so I've got to stick with him. I think his boxing is going to take him far in this fight. Tim Means, Cortez Acosta cannot pick Jared Vanderaa. I cannot do it. So it wouldn't matter who's sitting in that slot against Vanderaa. I'm going with the latter. So Josh Fremd over Trayshawn Gore for sure. Unlike you, I'm going to go Dustin Jacoby. A lot of bias there. The hometown kid. I've got to stick with him. I'm also going to go Phil Hawes. I just think he's going to be a little more experienced. He's both guys are powerful, but I am going to lean the favorite Phil Hawes there. Rogerio de Lima over Andre Arlovsky. Give me Jun Young Park. Give me Chase Hooper. I am going to go Cody Durden just for that experience factor and that gritty, tough, grinding out style that he can show. And then definitely Christian Rodriguez over Joshua Weems.
All right. And then for my bets that I got right now, I got Dolidze money line at 146, Tim Means money line at 150, Cortez Acosta by KO at 150, Calvin Kattar by decision at plus 225, under 2.5 rounds of the Josh Fremd Trayshawn Gore fight. And then I got a 2-leg parlay at the moment, Cortez Acosta and Jun Young Park at plus 109.
I like it. And the only difference you're going to see from me is Rogerio de Lima by knockout here. Again, Cody Durden, I think, is going to get it done by decision. Christian Rodriguez inside the distance. I think Josh Fremd gets it done by either KO or submission, but it's going to be inside the distance. Trayshawn Gore, like I said, man, it just not quite there yet, has been finished. Pretty confident Fremd gets it done by finish. Tim Means, I'm going to take by knockout over Max Griffin. I think his boxing and durability is going to be there the whole entire fight. And sooner or later, he's going to catch that chin. And Calvin Kattar by decision is going to be my final bet of the night.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to add Rogerio de Lima by KO. And once the round 1 KO prop comes out, I'm going to have to sprinkle on that.
Yep.
Definitely stay tuned for the full card at HI Picks on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'll post it all up there, usually like an hour before the fight.
Yep. If you want to follow me at The Parlay on TikTok, on Instagram, it is The Parlay_media, and YouTube, just search The Parlay MMA.
All right, before we end this one, there is another big fight happening this Saturday. We got Jake Paul and Anderson Silva. Who are you taking in this one?
It's tough because Anderson Silva is 47 years old, and I never thought there would be a world where I would be talking about Anderson Silva and Jake Paul in the boxing ring. It is ridiculous that the MMA and social media worlds have crossed, and even boxing worlds have crossed this much, that we're going to see these two guys throw down on Saturday. Jake Paul, young, obviously powerful. I'm not a big fan of his resume. He's fought, of course, Ben Askren, who is nowhere near a striker. Tyron Woodley surprised me. He was able to knock him out and beat him twice. But Anderson Silva is going to be a different level of strikers, regardless of what age he is. He's been doing this for longer than Jake Paul has been alive. I'm going to stick with the MMA side and go Anderson Silva. But, Jake Paul, the youth and power, will probably be on his side. But it's going to be tough to hit a guy like Anderson Silva. It's going to be a lot tougher than it was to hit Tyron Woodley. Overall, I'm leaning the Spider. Give me Anderson Silva. I'm going to say by decision.
Yeah, this one, as much as it pains me as a diehard MMA fan, I'm not a fan of boxing, really. Like, I think everyone can admit boxing is pretty much dying. And the fact that Jake Paul is probably the most popular boxer is says something about the sport. Other than like Tyson Fury or any of the big heavyweights and Canelo, I guess. But he's really, kind of the face of boxing right now, which is crazy to say. But yeah, as much as it pains me, I think Jake Paul gets it done. Just the youth, as you said, speed. Anderson, he has a couple boxing fights under his record, but boxing is a lot different, than MMA. And for Jake Paul to come into boxing, only train boxing, know what boxing, gets the best training from top tier coaches, spars with top tier athletes. He gets the best training that anyone can buy because he has the money to buy it.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, he does have natural power. Like, everyone's got to admit that he has natural power. And if you put the work in, what else is he doing? Like, he's not really doing anything else. You could say he has all these business adventures. Like, yeah, but he's really just the face of it. He's not really behind the scenes, like, doing the dirty work of
Right.
all these like business adventures. He's just the face of it, the marketer for it. He's a master marketer. And the fact that he has gotten on the stage to fight with Anderson Silva says a lot about his marketing.
Yeah, exactly.
At 5-0. So I'm going to go with Jake Paul. I just think the narrative is he's going to keep winning until he gets to a big fight, where it's just massive. I think he's going to stay on this winning streak. So,
yeah, no, I agree with you. And, I don't want to say I hate Jake Paul. I don't like Jake Paul because I respect the shit out of what he's doing. I respect the way he's been able to market himself. Like you said, he's been able to make himself a ton of money. But, man, he's just one of those guys you tune into just to see if he's going to get knocked out or see if he's going to lose. But at the end of the day, like, ask all the pros, ask a lot of the guys in the boxing community. The kid has some skill, and he definitely works hard enough to keep going. But it's one of those things, he's kind of put himself in a situation now to where if he loses, it's kind of the end of the show. You don't have that big, oh, this kid's undefeated, who's he going to fight next? I mean, he'll definitely still have some fights there, but it's not going to be this huge money-making machine that it is now. But at least he's put himself into a position where he can basically do whatever he wants after he's done boxing.
Yeah, I mean, it says a lot that he's so willing to fight anybody, really. That confidence,
yeah,
I can get behind. It's a better. I actually do have a bet on him to win. I put it in a while ago at plus 100, so even money. I took that. I think has moved to the favorite right now. I think he's like minus 130, minus 120. So I got a little bit of value on that one. Okay, actually, right now he's at minus 180.
Whew.
So I guess I could hedge it out and take Anderson Silva at plus 150, but
yeah,
that's not bad.
No.
I also do like the over, or I guess the fight to go to the distance. I got it at minus 120. Let me check what it's at right now just to see. I don't see either fighter getting finished.
Right.
So yeah,
super interesting stuff, though. I mean, I said, there's never a world. 5 years ago, if you would have told me this Jake Paul kid from YouTube is going to fight Anderson Silva and he's going to be the betting favorite, I'd have told you were crazy.
It's wild, but you got to respect it, and I respect it 100%. He's kind of bringing back boxing, which is crazy, but is what it is. And I'm looking forward to the fights in the UFC. I believe it starts at 4 p.m. Eastern, so 3 p.m. our time. And those aren't not a terrible start time. As we were talking earlier, we kind of like the earlier ones, but yeah, I'm excited for this weekend and 11 fights. Hopefully none of them get canceled within the next few days, and we can have a good weekend, make some money, and get some entertainment.
Absolutely. Any Saturday is a good Saturday with fights on. That's what I always say. That's
right. At the Double Leg on TikTok and Instagram. And if you're watching this, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. We will be posting shorts, TikToks, and on the Instagram reels, clips of these. So appreciate all your support. As always, at HI Picks on all medias for me, at the Parlay for Nolan on all medias. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And till next time, the Double Leg, we out.